Dr. Muhammad here with the Dr. Muhammad Experience, looking at children of incarcerated parents, a study that analyzes the pathways to success and resilience. Today, we have a phenomenal presentation from a brother who experienced parental incarceration and is indeed a success and very resilient. The first question that we have for you today is, what advice would you have for children of incarcerated parents that find themselves in difficult situations? What advice do you have for them in navigating down a pathway to success?
The advice that I would have to give to children currently experiencing incarceration with their family members would have to be one of the most important stories my grandmother told me. She was a may God rest her soul. She was an avid card player, gambler. She loved spades, loved going to casinos. So everything would equate around a story about cards or gambling. Um, and it was at one point, I think I probably was about um 12, 13. No, I think it was like 11 or 12. And I asked like why? Why is it that on Mother's Day I have to make up this story when I go to school about where my mother is? Or Father's Day, I gotta make up this elaborate story about what my father does and why he can't be here. Why do I have this? And and what she told me was that life is like a game of spades. You can't control the hand that you're dealt. But and she was like, furthermore, what she was saying is that you can't control the hand that you dealt. We don't have control over our families that we're born into, the neighborhoods that our family members choose to raise us in. We don't, these are things that we can't control as kids. But what she did say was that when you are dealt that hand, you look at it, you analyze it, and you scale out what's for sure going to be a success in your life and what's your possibilities. And you strategically play that hand out, right? And that's what life has dealt some of us, most of us with that grow up with our parents incarcerated. We've been dealt a raw hand. But what we have to do is set back, we have to analyze their hand, we have to look at our potential, we have to look at our strengths, we have to build upon those, and we have to do exactly what we need to do and work 10 times as hard as our counterpart, because what we have to do is we have to change the trajectory of our own legacy. We have to right the wrongs of our mothers and fathers. That's what God has gifted us to do, is to right the wrongs and rebuild our legacy. So if any advice I would have to give to young brothers and sisters that are experiencing parental incarceration is stay strong, stay resilient. There's nothing that you cannot do. Don't listen to society's measures of what a child of an incarcerated parent looks like, because you are not that. You are not the image that's brought to you by society's standards. You are God's creation, and God created us all to do magnificent things. So one's past decisions should not deter your future successes.
Very nicely put. One of the things that I want you to elaborate a little bit on is this concept of race. Oftentimes, when we talk about the children of incarcerated parents, we take that word out. You know, people are so afraid to talk about that. But at Howard University, we are an HBCU, and so we are not afraid of engaging in those sort of conversations. Is there advice that you have specifically for Black boys affected by parental incarceration?
Um, what I would have to specifically speak to our Black boys about, because um, it's like we are, we on the chopping block. They out for our necks. Um, but what we have to do, and it's a lot of things, and what I talk to a lot of my young people about that I work with inside the juvenile detention facilities, who also have parents that are incarcerated. A lot of them have a hatred towards their fathers or towards their mothers for past decisions that their parents have made. But what I encourage them to do is get the full scope of the story, understand the disease, understand the disease that has afflicted the African American community for so many years, that result in certain decisions to be made, such as drug abuse. That's a disease. Understand the disease. Once I understood the disease, I was able to forge a better relationship with my mother, because I understood that that wasn't my mother making the decisions that she was making. That was the disease making that for her. So I fought the disease, not the person, because during her incarceration, I got to know the person. And the person is the person that I love and I hold dear to this day. Even with my father, hustling is a disease. You know, a lot of men get into the game to change the lifestyles for their families, with whatever, being as resourceful as they could, as they can during that time. So they got into the game because that's where they saw success. They didn't see success in working a 9 to 5, because there weren't no 9 to 5 successful people in the neighborhoods in which they grew up in. There was only successful hustlers. So they got into that game with the intention to get out at some point, but they become afflicted with the disease of hustling, the disease of getting money, the disease of being in charge, of being a boss, and it sidetracked what their initial intention was. And then they fall short and they end up in the Federal Bureau of Prisons doing these long, lengthy sentences for one, for initially addressing the initial intention with trying to provide a better life for their families. So I encourage all my young people, understand, get the full scope of the story before placing fault and blame. But then also look at past mistakes and vow to never ever go down that road again. We have to, at some point, it's not enough for us to keep saying, well, my father did this or my grandfather did this. When I look back at my lineage consists of all convicted felons. My fathers, my father, my uncles, my grandfather, all were convicted felons. At one point, it was all three of them. I had a brother, uncle, father, and grandfather all locked up at the same time in the same facility. But at some point, we have to change the trajectory of where we're going, of our family's namesake. We have to right the wrongs of our father, and we have to vow to be different in all aspects. So, young brothers, that's what I would encourage you to do, is vow to be different. Begin your own path, blaze your own trail. Those past decisions, those past mistakes should not become, the blueprint of where you're going. No, we have to change the trajectory of that. We have to right the wrongs of our fathers by any means.
Very nicely put. Such powerful words. I am sure that those individuals who are viewing will definitely find nuggets of resiliency and success, and not only what you said, but things that they can put into their toolbox as a means of moving towards more success, more resiliency, and a space of sustainability. I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
No problem.